That's a really big problem because lots of times we chase the wrong thing. Well, there's an alternative approach, which is you say what you believe to be the case and you make the presumption, that's faith, let's say, you make the presumption that whatever happens as a consequence of that is the best thing that could happen. Make the alternative approach, which is you say what you believe to be the case and you make the presumption, that's faith, let's say, you make the presumption that whatever happens as a consequence of that is the best thing that could happen. So, but also, this is the adventurous part, you don't know what's going to happen, right? And so you're throwing yourself into the fray. I'm going to say what I think, and there'll be consequences, but I don't know what they are. Well, you think, well, that's scary. It's like,
you are just describing living in a linear timeline as a conscious being. You are just describing the experience of being conscious from one moment to the next. Any kind of action you take is throwing yourself into the unknown. You don't even have to do all the other things you were describing in your order of operations. If you are watching this right now and you breathed, you threw yourself into the unknown. Because a meteor could have hit. Any million bajillion possibilities could have occurred in any given moment of you listening to me say this. Because living in a linear time is living in the unknown. It's where possibility exists.
well, yeah, but it's extremely interesting. It's ridiculously exciting.
Well, relative to what's happening in the world right now, just the results of this election and the
Dave has no idea what the fuck Jordan Peterson is talking about and is just trying to insert something that sounds relevant.
fact that a bunch of us, the laundry list of people, whether it was you and I or Rogan or Brett Weinstein or Douglas Murray or just all of these people that just started talking, that's all we were doing. When that whole intellectual dark web thing happened, all it was that we were talking. There was magic to it in that people were hearing things from you that maybe they hadn't heard before, or they should have heard before, or their parents didn't tell them or something like that, or education didn't give them, or they were hearing a biological explanation about evolution from Brett that they hadn't heard before, something like that. But really what was happening, we were having honest discussions and disagreements and agreements about a whole host of things, and there was no other outlet for that. So
there was also no other agenda than that.
And there was no agenda, and that's the thing. And in some ways, that's why we couldn't all turn it into something. You know, there was this moment where everyone was like, oh my God, are you guys a TV network? Are you a road show? Are you a podcast? Like, what is this thing? Is it everyone on tour together, whatever? And we couldn't quite figure it out because I think partly because we were just doing it for the sake of doing it. I was doing what I thought was best in my life, and I think it's borne out that way. I think you did as well. But look what happened to the world since then.
We were very early adopters of a very powerful technology. So that was
right. So there were two things. So there are two parts, right? So the first part is just that we were talking, right? Yeah. And nobody else was having mature conversations anywhere. When I started doing long form interviews, the reason I was doing it was because everyone started going on Snapchat, and it was driving me crazy. I thought,
dude, is Snapchat still at all relevant? Is Snapchat relevant? Do the kids still use Snapchat? Anyway, yeah, it's pretty cool that we get to see a conversation between the two guys who invented podcasting, apparently.
But this thing's making everybody dumber. I'm not even sure that Snapchat really exists anymore, but it was, 10-second, and there were Vine. Do you remember Vine videos? It was a portion of Twitter, these 6-second looped videos. And I thought, this is insane. There's so many things to talk about. There's so much going on in the world. Why are we just dumbing everything and clipping everything down like this? I had become friends with Larry King.
Dude, you can't say that, one, when your stand-up is that bad, but two, just real quick here.
We have to start with
just real quick. Yeah, why are we dumbing everything down and clipping everything, huh? Clipping everything into these digestible bits, that are only like, 1 or 2 minutes long. I don't know. Seems pretty dumb how culture has degraded into just these tiny segments of information. Yeah, man, it'd be pretty wild and weird for him to say, do that to this exact conversation that they're having. Be pretty weird if that was the case. Anyway.
And I thought, that's what I want to do.
Oh, check the shorts tab. That's a great idea, real quick. What do you got, Dave? Got some... Oh! Oh, Dave. Oh.
I want to sit with somebody and hear what they have to say. And then now, subsequently, in the last 8 years, everybody and their brother has a podcast and everyone's doing it. But I think we were early in on that. And then you're right. We were early in. There were people in before us, for sure. But we were early in on leverage.
Oh, Snapchat is one of the top apps for people under 20. Yeah, good for you, young people. I'm glad you have something that us olds haven't ruined.
What technology was going to do.
Rogan.
Rogan got in around the same time I did. I mean, the network that I worked for, the Young Turks, I don't have a lot of good things to say about them, but Cenk Uygur did realize that online was going to matter more than mainstream. And I think if we've seen anything in the last week, I mean, my argument these last 2 or 3 months was that this was not an election about Trump versus Kamala or liberals versus conservatives or Democrats versus Republicans. This was basically the election on reality and how many people are still going to swallow the lies. And we can go through the laundry list of things that they've...
Wasn't Mark Maron like the first big podcaster? Am I making that up? Is he still going? I feel like I haven't heard about Mark Maron in years. Good night, Dragonfly. Yeah, good God. This launched in 2009. They're still going. They've done 1,585 episodes. Damn, dude. Huh. They've literally had an episode of their podcast selected for the Library of Congress preservation. That's crazy. Huh. All right.
I cannot hear Dave Rubin talk about dumbing down society when this exists.
Who knows how many of those people are actually students? They're all masked, and I firmly believe now that COVID was just a test run to see how we could normalize
God bless the DRC archive.
Masks so we could have jihadists out in the streets.
So we're in a true information war. We are in a Philip K. Dick sort of dystopian information war. Once we have humanoid robots, which, you know, they're basically here. Well, now what if you put that woke mind virus into them? And they become police officers? I mean, this is...
What if we get woke robot police? Oh no! All right, cool. I love this. I'm gonna watch it later. We can't watch this all now. Everyone go support the Dave Rubin C archive. I don't remember what C stands for. Oh, Dave Rubin Clips archive. Yeah. Go support it. It's great. It's great stuff. Good night, Metal Kitty Mom.
Lied about, that the machine has lied about,
and
from very fine people to, you know, the vaccine stops COVID. I mean, we can do the whole thing. And so that was one portion of people and the rest of us that where it's messy. And maybe RFK's right.
Yeah. No, RFK's not right. He literally killed like 80 children over his anti-vax ideals. We have evidence of him trying to implement his program, and it got children killed, Dave.
Right about some things, maybe not. But what's bringing Tulsi over? And we did that rescue the
Maybe he's right about some things. Maybe he's not. Oh, great! What a brave non-statement, Dave.
Republic event. And it was like, what was bringing Russell Brand and you and me and RFK and Tulsi and Brett, all of these people
strange bedfellows.
None of this would make any sense in an ordered world. But the world had gotten so out of control that suddenly it pushed us together. I think that's actually exactly what you just laid out in the story right there, right? It went so haywire that suddenly we all got pushed together. And so I guess my question to you then would be, are we now on the other side? Doesn't it feel like something has fundamentally shifted?
For those of us watching the major issues facing our country, one stands out above the rest: our national debt. The fact is, our nation's finances rest on a precarious foundation that can't be quickly stabilized. With so much beyond our control, and yes, even beyond our leaders' control, having a safe haven for your savings isn't just smart, it's essential. That's where
Yeah, because no one on Earth could manipulate the price of gold. No country, say, has a colossal stockpile of gold with which to manipulate gold prices. Anyway.
Where Birch Gold Group comes in. They'll help you convert your IRA or 401k into a physical gold IRA. And here's the best part: it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In these uncertain times, protecting your savings with a tangible asset like gold could make all the difference. As the exclusive gold partner of the Daily Wire for the past 8 years, Birch Gold Group has earned their reputation for trustworthy service. Text Jordan to 989898 to get your free info kit. Plus, right now through Black Friday, you'll receive a free 1-ounce Silver Eagle for every $5,000 purchased. As the exclusive gold partner of the Daily Wire for the past 8 years, you can trust Birch Gold, as I do, to help you protect your savings. Text Jordan to 989898 today.
Well, I think what put the capstone on was the last month of this presidential election. I think what happened was that Baron Trump got the ear of Trump and knew the podcast world, and Trump, being very entrepreneurial and a risk taker, decided to pay attention.
Yeah.
Because he picked a lot of podcasts that you'd only pick if you knew the podcast world. I think Rogan's an obvious choice because like he's the 800-pound gorilla, obviously, although I'm not saying it wasn't courageous and wise of Trump to go on Rogan. Because
basically no other.
Why doesn't Riverboat Jack have an official gold partner? I do. Her name is Clarice, and she's making adorable underwear for trans people. And adorable, sexy underwear for trans people. There we go. She's the gold standard in partners.
Politician would ever do a 3-hour unedited, sit down like that.
And there's certainly this delusion that I think the legacy media and perhaps...
No, guys. Donald Trump only won because he went on Joe Rogan. No other reason.
Perhaps even the Democrats are starting to realize, perhaps, that their consistent insistence that Rogan is a fringe figure, and certainly like some kind of gateway to the right, is ignorant and preposterous, both of those things.
Yet bizarrely true now also, right? Right?
Well, yeah, but the thing is...
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
He's a gateway to... It's the very strange version of the right.
Well, that's what they used to say about me. Because I left the left, but wait a minute, this guy's gay, he's still liberal, mostly pro-choice, like we could do the whole laundry list of things, but that I was just willing to talk to people. So then suddenly I'm talking to you, and then I was like, I'll talk to Shapiro.
How many carrots is she? All of them.
Talk to Glenn Beck. That's a scary guy. He's a crazy right-winger. I'll talk to Larry Elder, et cetera, et cetera. So then that's what people used to say to me all the time. You're the gateway drug. The funny thing about Rogan is if you see what the media is doing with him now, is the mainstream media is going, why is it that we don't have our own Rogan? Well, you idiots, you had him.
Yeah, no.
You
Well-
had him.
well, did
you
you see
refused to
Greg
talk about it,
Hurwitz?
and you tried to get him kicked off.
Yeah.
You tried to get him kicked off Spotify.
Also, Kamala Harris could have gone on Joe Rogan. She wasn't barred from being on Rogan. My understanding is she was invited. Hey, Valerian Damocles Marcellus, how you doing? Also, hey, One Hand Wonder. And also, like, we have leftist content creators, but the reason, like, Democrats don't funnel money into a leftist podcast or funnel, like, their, time and attention into leftist podcasters is because we're going to ask them inconvenient questions that they don't like. Joe Rogan's not going to do that. And if he does, he's going to mostly go along with any kind of bullshit answer you give him. He's going to nod along.
Did you see Hurwitz made public? Greg Hurwitz made public
I did see
this
it.
week. I
Yeah.
thought that was really
Yeah.
good. That message that because Greg was a very influential consultant to the Democrats and a messenger, like
Yeah.
very influential. And he sent them an invitation from all of us, essentially, back
Yeah.
in 2017, saying, "Hey, the reason that none of you are on our shows is because you say no. It's not because you're not being invited." And I invited dozens of high-ranking Democrats to come on my podcast, and all of them said no. They would talk to me privately, but not publicly.
As recently as I believe it was last March when we were having the big bipartisan border deal fight. Remember that? There were 3 days of we're going to pass this bipartisan deal to deal with the border, even though we don't need a law passed. It's obviously the president is allowed to deal with the border. We went.
Wait, Dave, what do you think? Dave, we need laws to do things. The president can't unilaterally do everything. By the way, anytime Congress gets invoked, Dave talks about, we're a nation of laws. He does this all the time. Every conservative does.
Went to DC. We hunkered down in a studio for a day in Rumble Studios. We invited 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats. 19 Republicans said yes.
Yeah.
The only one who couldn't do it that day was Rand Paul because one of his staffers got stabbed on the street of DC. That tells you everything you need to know about that. 19 of 20 Democrats did not respond. The only one who responded was Ilhan Omar, which was kind of hilarious. And she said no. But that tells you it right there. I am not thought of as a gotcha interviewer, right?
Yeah, right.
That was the biggest.
We need liberals. There are so few. No, most YouTubers are liberals. There are plenty of liberal YouTubers out there. The issue is the Democrats need to play ball with people who are going to ask them uncomfortable questions and push them on issues, and they don't want to do that because they would rather have their lobbyist money. It really does boil down that far.
Knock on me for years is, Rubin's just going to throw you softballs.
Yeah,
I was just interested in talking to people, but the idea that
That's Rogan too. Rogan's
but
probably
that's
a
the
little
point.
harsher than you, but he's not a gotcha interviewer ever.
No, but if you have the entire cultural apparatus, which the Democrats in essence had, and then you just think you can ignore the thing, you'll ignore it until you can't ignore it anymore. I think what's now happened is they cannot ignore it anymore.
That is exactly what happened.
If I was getting the views or you were getting the views that MSNBC were getting, I would consider a new career. I actually mean that at this point. We're blowing them out of the water. And I'm not telling you it's because I'm the best journalist in the world. I don't even consider myself a journalist.
Right.
I tell
You're just real quick. Just real quick here.
we have to start.
Like, I don't know. Some of these aren't doing numbers. Some of these videos are not doing numbers. 26K? Some of these do numbers, but like, Dave. All right.
Tell people what I think. I see the news in the morning, and then partly because of being on tour with you, I try to do in the hour-long show that I do every day, I try to tell a story. I don't just try to say, oh, there's 10 things going on. I try to loop it into some sort of narrative story. And you've met my producer, Phoenix, who you hugely helped in his own life. And then we started working together, and now we craft a story so that if people give me an hour of their day, which is an awful lot of time,
yes,
5 days,
definitely.
and I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of that. And I don't expect everyone to do it. And maybe you can only give me 5 minutes one day, and one day you'll give me an hour, or whatever it might be.
Wow, so you read a bunch of stories and then you craft a story about those stories. Incredible work, Dave.
But I want you to walk away with, oh, there's some context to what's going on here. Not just, okay, this guy said this and this one did this, and
Right,
just
yeah.
the end.
Just real quick. Just So chat, I did some book shopping today. This is just a fun one that I picked up. Nothing to do with what I was about to talk about, but it's called Between Two Fires, and it's kind of like this horror book set during the Middle Ages in France. It's gonna be good. I'm really excited. But I bought, different books like Jason Stanley's Erasing History, How Fascists Rewrite the Past to Control the Future. I also bought a physical copy of On Tyranny because it's been a really good learning experience so far, and I'd like to just have the physical copy. And also, a couple of books here. Family. Got Ryan Grimm's book, The Squad. AOC and Hope of a Political Revolution, because I think it will do a lot to kind of explain the current predicament of the left. I also, thanks to an interview that Sam Cedar did actually, got When the Clock Broke, which is kind of an overview of like how the 1990s kind of mired us in the current political context that we're in. And finally, I got The Quiet Coup, Neoliberalism and the Looting of America. Because the narrative and storytelling I want to share with you guys is supposed to be rooted in, like, actual true concepts and analysis. And that's what I strive to do for you guys. Rather than what Dave Rubin does, which is figure out what the biggest donors in the Republican Party want him to say and just do that. That's his job. And it irritates me greatly that he's like, no, you see, you have to craft a narrative around the news stories, and yeah, but what's the basis for the narrative you're crafting, Dave? Is it what serves corporate power? What serves your bottom line? Or is it what's true?
Because otherwise we'll do that forever, right? We'll just do it forever. And I think by all of us having these conversations, by starting to find these alliances, by the left being so hysterical, and you may remember we were in Miami a couple years ago at a party in a backyard, and there was a big debate about what do we do. It was a lot of your friends, a lot of our friends, and there was a big debate about what do we do with the Democrats. And I kept saying they are not coming around. They are not coming around.
That.
And Greg was taking the counter position. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, because I would like them to come around. I think maybe now You know,
see.
we're no, right. So it's going to be years now because
Yeah.
they still
have an opportunity now.
But there's an opportunity at least.
Yeah.
It was going to take the destruction. And I think we have the destruction now. I don't know how haywire it goes on their side, but I think that was it. The only thing the people on the right did that somehow now makes Joe Rogan a Trump supporter is that they were willing to talk. That's it. Willing to talk and willing to question things.
Well,
And then
it's
it got put on steroids with COVID.
It's so funny watching the MSNBC people do a post-mortem on what's their claim? The right's stranglehold on the new media.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can't really call it a stranglehold when the reason it exists is because you wouldn't participate.
Right.
Right. And so you
Can we have a book club? Sure. I would not. You guys can definitely form book clubs. I know that on the Discord they just we just made a channel for books. I, however, will not be able to keep any kind of book club schedule that I try and promise you because I'm typically really busy, guys. Like, there's a reason why I wasn't able to start streaming until like 11:40 p.m. today. It's because I was really busy.
You refuse to admit to the reality of the new technology,
I'm
and you
busy
refuse to engage despite repeated good faith offers, like endlessly repeated good faith offers with people. It certainly wasn't inevitable that Rogan was going to transform into a Trump supporter.
No, they have themselves to blame.
Yeah, definitely.
They have absolutely themselves to blame. Look, when I got the offer for my first book, and we were on tour, we were in maybe we were in Copenhagen, I think, and I told you backstage, and of course, one of the rules is be happy for your friends when you hear good news. Slightly butchering it, and the way you smiled and slapped your hands, and you were sitting in a rotating chair, and I remember your chair fully spun around. You were so happy for me. That book, Don't Burn This Book, became a New York Times bestseller. It should have been like number 2 or 3, but they fiddle with the numbers. I don't even care about that. I mention that only because I could not get on MSNBC, CNN, or any mainstream media. Fox put me on constantly. So again, it's like
It's the same with 12 Rules. Like that was. I think that's the biggest selling nonfiction book in Canadian history. I think.
Yeah.
It's certainly close. And
they say
what about the Bible? Is that nonfiction? Jordan? Maybe we'll finally be able to nail him down on that one.
Right. They said you weren't published in
well,
the
that's
States,
the
right?
first thing. The New York Times never did put it on the list.
Right.
Never. And so that was pretty interesting. And then I had no mainstream media interviews about 12 Rules in the United States, like zero. Fox, yes.
Right.
Fox.
But then think about
That
what
was
happens.
it.
So then you do that unbelievable interview with Kathy Newman, right? And then suddenly this thing happens online. I mean, that Kathy Newman moment.
Yeah.
That was an unbelievably tear the internet in half moment for people that were paying attention. So now this huge well of support, it's support, it's love and it's hate and it's anger and it's confusion, all the emotions that anyone could have about any of this, that's happening online and it's being completely ignored on the mainstream. So now people
ignored
have
enough so that Channel 4, which was the interview, actually posted the whole interview online without even, I think, a moment's consideration. That just stunned me that they did that.
Well, the best part of that was, didn't she, right after the interview, didn't she do a little selfie or something in her car where she was basically like, I sat down with this guy, it was no big deal or whatever. And then once she realized how sort of bad she looked, then of course she wanted to play the victim and everything else. But the point that I'm trying to show there is that there has been something going on online with the thing that's in all of our pockets all the time that we're all paying attention to, probably way too much time of the day. That was being completely ignored by the mainstream. And that's why when you say, well, what's going on at MSNBC, and they can't do a proper post-mortem, and they're saying the Latinos are white supremacists, or the gays are white supremacists. It's like, because you guys you lied about everything and ignored all of us the entire time. Not only did you not have to do it, if they would have been, I bet you 10% better, we would not be in this situation right now. We would probably have Kamala Harris as the president-elect, because most people are willing to swallow a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Like, we all have our own problems, all of our own stuff. But they went so in on all of the lies. The fact that Barack Obama, 2 days before the election, gave a speech, I think it was in Wisconsin, where he said that Donald Trump went to a white supremacist rally and said there were very fine people on both sides. The fact that he ran with that hoax again.
Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville white supremacist rally, the Unite the Right rally that was organized by neo-Nazis for neo-Nazis. You know, again, you can look at the people who organized the Unite the Right rally. They were neo-Nazis. They're the biggest neo-Nazis in America. And I gotta be honest, if you're at a statue protest and the people who are protesting on your side are Nazis and they have planned a national gathering of Nazis around you, if you don't leave or join the counter protest, you're a Nazi. And he said there were very fine people on both sides. It's not rocket science here, guys.
After it has been debunked.
By people who wouldn't debunk it unless it was seriously not true.
I think the first time.
I wonder if they apply all of that type of rigorous intellectual logic that they just used to every single time those fact checkers deem something not true. I doubt it. But also, those fact checkers were wrong in that instance. They get a lot of things right. In that one, they were wrong. God.
That got to mainstream media was me on Real Time, because James Carville brought it up with Maher, and I had never heard it said on mainstream, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. And I said, what are you talking about? The next sentence out of his mouth was, but I'm not talking about the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis who should be condemned entirely.
So who was he talking about then? Because that was the entirety of one side. Who was he talking about? Who? There was no one else on that side.
But Carville literally crumbles to the table because he did not know what to do when confronted with reality. And then Bill said, well, it was worded inarticulately or something to that effect. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way of playing a little bit of cleanup on that. But the point is, they thought, I think Obama, what would your psychological analysis of
just in case, you know, anyone forgot what it was. The Unite the Right rally, a white supremacist rally that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia. You can tell it's a white supremacist rally because, you know, it's pretty obvious. Yeah, the marchers included members of the alt-right, neo-Confederates, neo-fascists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, Klansmen, far-right militias. Some groups chanted racist and anti-Semitic slogans and carried weapons, Nazi and neo-Nazi symbols, the Wahlknut, Confederate battle flags, Deus Vult crosses, flags, other various symbols, past and present anti-Semitic and anti-Islamic groups. Yeah, the organizers' stated goals included the unification of the American white nationalist movement and opposing the proposed removal of the statue of General Robert E. Lee. Which people in that coalition were the good people? I really want Dave to answer that. I would love that. Maybe he was talking about some of the anti-Islamic people. Maybe he's just aligned with those folks. I doubt it, though.
Analysis of Obama be right there. It's 2 days before the election. He either believes it,
Yeah.
which there's no way he could be that dumb and ignorant. Simply impossible. But maybe you want to give him 5% chance. You want to give him 5%? What do you want to give him on that? Let's give him 20%, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
20%.
You know what? Let's read out the protesting groups that were present. The Nationalist Front, a white supremacist organization. The League of the South, a white supremacist organization. Identity Dixie, a white supremacist organization. Traditionalist Worker Party, that is a fascist organization. Vanguard America, a white nationalist organization. National Socialist Movement, a Nazi organization. The Ku fucking Klux Klan, a white nationalist organization, and the Confederate White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, also a white supremacist organization. The Daily Stormer, a white supremacist organization. Desnat, a white supremacist neo-Nazi organization. The Right Stuff, an alt-right white supremacist neo-Nazi organization. Fraternal Order of Alt-Knights, neo-Nazi white supremacist org. Identity Europa, white supremacy org. Rise Above Movement, a white supremacy organization. American Guard, a white supremacy organization. Detroit Right Wings, a white supremacy organization. True Cascadia, a white supremacy organization. Alt-Right Montreal, a white supremacy organization. Hammer Brothers, a fascist organization. Anti-Communist Action, a fascist organization. And then you have the American Militia Movement, the Pennsylvania Lightfoot Militia, the New York Lightfoot Militia, and the Virginia Minutemen Militia, and the Three Percenters. All of them white supremacist groups. Who are the leaders? Richard B. Spencer, a neo-Nazi. Jason Kessler, a neo-Nazi. Anyway, those were the orgs present protesting on that side. I wonder which one of them Dave would describe as the good guys that Trump was referring to.
So he's unbelievably dumb and ignorant, and he ran the speech by nobody who's willing to confront him with reality. Or what would the only alternative be? He knows he can lie. It doesn't matter how big the lie is. And he thinks the lie will
night, Josh.
accomplish the goal, that the ends justify the means. I think they got to the end of that road. I think that's what this election was. You cannot tell us that there are very fine people on both sides. You can't tell us that Brett Kavanaugh is a serial rapist, or that the Covington kids are racist, or that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. I mean, we could do a million versions. That 6-foot social distancing was scientifically backed. And I think that's actually what this election was about. It really, Trump then became the avatar that was sort of wrapped around that thing. And then Kamala basically became the avatar for the
and
machine.
We talked too about the fact that in the last month, a lot of radical things happened around Trump the last month.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the fact that this weird coalition gathered around him, which is, completely preposterous. It's completely preposterous.
Yeah.
That Elon Musk is now going to be running the Department of Governmental Efficiency, and that has the same acronym as Doge.
Yeah,
that was a coin, and it's a funny dog, and it's do only good every day. It's like, what the hell is going on here? It's ridiculously comical that Musk is actually an X-Man, because that's the name of his platform, and that idea is being...
Is it ridiculously comical? I feel like you're not saying it in a way that indicates you actually think it is funny. I feel like if you're describing something in the tone and voice of it's ridiculously comical, you don't actually think it's that funny.
Obsessing him for years, and that Gabbard is on board, and that Robert F. Kennedy came along, and that Vance is along, and so is Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, these are very unlikely Republicans, very unlikely. And so that's weird as hell. And it's like seriously, surreally this is pulp fiction weird. It's
So what
really
do you
strange.
think the unifying principle is? To me, it's that they love America. Like that's sort of like you would say low
I think they're all
resolution bumper sticker.
iconoclasts.
Yeah.
I think it's analogous in some ways on the political side to what happened with the media, the new media that we were describing. There wasn't anything really that we had in common. Let's say you and I, or Weinstein, or Rogan, Shapiro, like that. That was a very diverse group of people.
It was free speech in the most,
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
in the essence.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was, well, I think the thing we had in common essentially was our approach to discourse.
Yeah.
That was really all.
Yeah.
I mean, each of us taken in pairs had things in common, but it was devotion to discourse, open discourse, conversational discourse, essentially.
Yeah.
And in a sense, on agenda-free conversational discourse. I mean, one of the things that makes Rogan so perennially popular is that he's just trying to figure out what's going on. And that really is the case.
Yeah.
And you know Rogan, you know that what you see is what you get. He's all the people in that group are exactly the same on camera and off.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no persona. They're just exactly who they are. And all of those people were and are iconoclastic, right? They didn't fit well in organizations. They all started their own thing. And that's really the same thing that's characteristic of these people that have gathered around Trump. And then, as we alluded to, we also have this other strange occurrence, which is the death throes of the legacy media. Douglas Murray, I talked to him the other day, and he said, well, don't throw all of the legacy media under the bus. There is the New York Post, for example. The Fox News people are trying to do their best. And,
Sure.
you have the Free Press with Barry, but that's new media too. So by and large, the liberal end of the legacy media have doomed themselves to perdition because they got partisan and deceitful. And they were also willingly blind because they didn't pay attention to the new media at all.
Well, nobody could be that bad at their job. No janitor could be so horrible at his job and still have a job the next day. Joe Scarborough lies every day. He sits in a chair at MSNBC at a giant corporation to lie. Somebody up.
Dave, how do you say that without laughing? That's literally what you do every day. Dave.
Up there, I don't know who his boss is, but somebody up the chain of the corporation knows that he's lying about all of these things. They know that Joy Reid is in essence a neo-racist, or that Rachel Maddow's spent 3.
Dave, I'm gonna need you to describe what you think neo-racism is. Because my understanding is that talking about racism is woke. What is this anti-woke neo-racism? Help me understand so I can start talking about neo-racism. 100% it's just anti-white racism. No, Joe Bertus Maximus. It can't be anti-white racism. Because he's talking about neo-racism. It's a totally different thing. Very, very unwoke, apparently.
3 years relentlessly lying about vaccines and COVID.
But also, you're almost certainly correct.
Are fear, worry, and anxiety robbing you of peace?
Oh, God.
In today's troubling world, it's easy to let these feelings take over your minds and hearts.
Oh, God.
Pastor Greg Laurie's book, God's Answer to Fear, Worry, and Anxiety, was written to help you find peace and confidence through proven biblical principles.
You know, this is why a lot of people think Jordan Peterson's a Christian. This is what they advertise on it.
In this valuable book, pastor and evangelist Greg Laurie shares practical insights from the Bible that address the root cause of fear and anxiety. Whether you're struggling with uncertainty, stress, or just the
Racism is racism in the Neopets universe. Yeah.
everyday pressures of life, this book is a timely resource to help you overcome. God's Answer to Fear, Worry, and Anxiety is available as a free download at harvest.org/Jordan.
Okay, just out of curiosity, that didn't tell me anything about what harvest.org is, so I'm going to look it up. Oh, boy. What is this?
Surf's up!
Where's Yellow Dog? He was supposed to finish the lights.
I'm gonna need some hot cocoa stat.
I'm so glad Grandma let us use her cabin for a little Christmas break.
I'm sorry. We need subtitles.
I'm not crazy about the dog sweater she keeps giving me.
At least she got rid of that outhouse.
It's frozen shut! Let me know!
Here's to indoor plumbing.
And cheers to finishing the Christmas tree.
Did they just use the same cutaway twice to save on animation costs? Also, this is just Family Guy aesthetic, but without any of the clever writing. Okay. All right.
There's a lot of good ones on there. Surfing Santa, Snowball Face, Rock and Roll Angel, and the Three Wise Guys.
Star in the sky, forget about it.
Well, we should get rolling. There's no place like home for the holidays.
And nothing like a beach on Christmas Eve.
Ooh, let's go! Yippee! Bonsai!
What are these things?
Firewood, check. Good weather, check. Food, check. Tonight is gonna be so cool. But
We
where
have
are Ben and
Family Guy
Yellow
at
Dog?
home.
Check.
Let's not drive with the windows down next time.
Wow, Ben. I just told you to bring ice.
Oh, hi, Summer. Merry Christmas.
Oh, we brought a friend.
Hey, can I go over the Christmas Eve service with you?
Sure. Just let me get some fish tacos in my belly first.
Nachos roasting on an open fire.
God, it's like looking into a weird mirror. There was a time in my life where I was just the protagonist of this show. Oh, God.
Whew. That long drive down the mountain made me hungry.
I hear ya. I got a side of nachos, one fish taco, and a fireball special. Comes with jalapenos, chili peppers, and extra hot sauce.
Yikes! Fireball special? Do you have a death wish?
No, I just knew we'd get a visit from our friend Hopkins. Oh, you need a little water, Hopkins?
Listen here. You will rue this day, contemptible canine. More than hot sauce. My belly now burns with revenge.
Oh, cats.
Aw, come on, he's harmless. Just a little mischief maker.
He's pure evil with whiskers.
And then the band.
There's just so much here, guys. Also, no one's playing in the water.
Wants to play a little at the end.
I think that's great. Thanks for keeping us organized, Summer. I just hope some new people show up.
Ben, remember Jesus said,
Yeah, the subtitles are off, so I'm just gonna turn them off.
when two or more gather in my name, I will be there. Hey, dude, are you here for the Christmas Eve service? I'm Summer. What's your name?
Whoa, he's so cool. Now kiss.
Nice picking. I'm Ben. I haven't seen you around here.
I just moved here from Alabama, where we like everything fried and our tea sweet. The name's Willie.
A southern boy, huh?
Through and through. You know where I can get a good piece of cornbread?
Can you put it in a taco?
Y'all put anything in a taco out here, don't you? Man, I feel like I'm in another planet out here.
Well, I'm sure they celebrate Christmas in Alabama. Why don't you join us?
Christmas? You mean with the big tree, Santa Claus, presents and all that? But man, I don't really get what all the fuss is about.
I'm sorry, you're from Alabama and you barely know what Christmas is? Alabama. I hate to break it to you, Show. They know what Christmas is in Alabama.
Then you haven't heard the whole story. Sit by the fire with us and you will.
I'm from Alabama does not check out. Yeah.
Let's bury the hatchet. Merry Christmas. Go! Fruitcake? How dare you? What are you talking about? Lots of people love fruitcake. Then please go find them.
Literally no one likes fruitcake. This dog is insane.
I've never been to a church like this, out here.
Okay, if you have ever been at a rural church, you absolutely have been to church services like this. And I know because I worked at a Bible camp.
Well, I hope you like the preacher. Welcome, everyone, to our Christmas Eve service out here in God's creation. Now, I'm sure many of you are waiting for a visit from St. Nick. Looks like you might...
How did we get from Jordan Peterson to Temu Family Guy? Jordan Peterson was advertising this website on his show, and I had to check out what the website was, and this was the thing on the front page of the website.
I'd already be here. But the real story of Christmas is not the one with Santa, Frosty, or Rudolph. I'm talking about the story of God sending his son Jesus to Earth. And he came here as a helpless little baby. Help me out, yo.
Wow, that's crazy. No one else has been helpless little babies before. Jesus was the first one.
Hello, dog?
Ah, yes. As it says in the Bible, as it is written in Isaiah 9:6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.
Wow, that cat knows his Bible.
It was one amazing night, long ago. A young girl named Mary was given a message from an angel.
Like a text?
No, the angel just appeared to her. He told her she was to have a son that would change everything and show God's love for all time.
A young girl, you say, not an adult woman, huh? Pretty sus, God. Pretty sus.
She and her husband Joseph had to take a trip far from home for the yearly census. A census is a time where everyone is counted from their hometowns. But by the time they stopped for the night in Bethlehem, all the hotels were full. They finally had to sleep in a barn.
Oh, I remember. With all the animals. Ugh, disgusting.
Dude, you're an animal.
Oh, yeah.
But even in that humble place, in the poorest circumstances, a king was born. Shepherds came to worship this baby because they knew he would save.
Wait a minute. They're both blonde, and the baby has brown hair. Joseph, you are not the father.
The world.
How?
What?
How did they know this baby was such a big deal? Did he have a little crown? Did he glow in the dark?
Nothing like that.
Aw, I bet he had a little baby halo.
Not exactly. What they all knew from signs, wonders, and prophecies in the Old Testament is that this child would grow up to teach everyone about God's plan. And then he would give his very life.
I'm not sure that they knew that in the story. I've read the Bible a few times. I'm not sure that they knew that because of their extensive knowledge of the Torah and their interpretation of it. Pretty sure that, like, angels keep telling them that, like, yeah, this is the Messiah. Haha.
For us.
Oh, I don't like this part of the story. It's so sad.
I know, buddy. But that's why Jesus came. He died on the cross for our sins and rose again from the dead. The good news is that he is alive and here with us right now. The reason we give gifts to each other at Christmas is because we are remembering that Jesus offers us the ultimate gift, eternal life with him. Unlimited warranty.
I don't think that's why people give gifts on Christmas. I think it's for a lot of other historical, cultural reasons, like Saint Nick or Yuletide tradition. Like I don't know, commercialism. I think there's a lot of other reasons now.
No batteries needed. It's the real gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, let me read the card.
We all open gifts differently, don't we?
Aww.
But no matter how you open your gift, the important thing is that you open it. It's yours for the taking, and Jesus is waiting. Now, who here is ready to open it? If you want this gift from Jesus, just pray with me tonight. Lord Jesus, I know I am a sinner, and I believe you died for my sins. I open the door of my heart and give my life to you as my personal Lord and Savior.
Chat, I just want to pause this for a second. Somewhere out there is someone who has watched this video and now is going through their lives believing that their soul was saved, that their eternal essence has been sanctified because they silently prayed along with knockoff Family Guy. What a world we live in, huh? Anything's possible in Biden's America.
Amen.
Phew, man, I'm still not sure what this gift from Jesus means, but I tell you what, I want to know more about it.
And then we can start reading this together.
Wow, there really is more to Christmas, huh?
Our our joy to the world is Jesus.
That seems like a real joy, but I still think you need a little more country on this beat.
Then you better bring it.
Okay, so this guy knew nothing about Christmas, but is able to jump in to a Christmas Carol song. And he knows the words. Uh-huh.
Merry Christmas, everyone! Thanks for watching our Christmas special. If you prayed that prayer with me to ask Jesus to come into your life, that's the best decision you'll make. Head on over to benbornagain.org for some helpful resources. Merry Christmas!
All right, so we definitely learned today. Book of Revelation, okay. Oh, God came through for me, okay. Oh, there's been a crossover. Oh, okay. Jordan Peterson and Greg Laurie. Who's this Greg Laurie person? Who this? Let's see here. All right, yeah, he's basically been a lifelong evangelist. Okay.
That's harvest.org/Jordan. This offer is only available for a limited time, so be sure to download your copy of God's Answer to Fear, Worry, and Anxiety by Greg Laurie today.
So what people, I think, have to understand is they're paid to lie.
Well,
they are well paid to push a particular narrative.
Part of the difference with the old media, let's say, the corporate media, and the new media is that those organizations are corporations, and the people that you see are the front men for the organization.
Exactly.
They're not investigative. They're not independent investigative journalists. Now, I know you claim that.
Yeah, you can't trust those people on TV because they're frontmen for major big money organizations. Not like Elon Musk. Elon Musk is totally independent. Definitely not the face of a gigantic multinational corporation.
You know, that you're not a journalist, and technically that's true, but that's the roughest equivalent because I don't know, apart from podcaster, I don't know what the definition is. So
yeah, I would. It's something like I'm trying to translate.
Also, chat, we've been going for 4 hours now. If you've been enjoying the show, hit the follow button on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like the goddamn YouTube stream, and please consider dropping those subs and donos, because people like you bring this show alive. I couldn't do it without you guys.
The nonsense, but that's not a
talk show host.
Yeah, I'm a talk show. I'm a talk show host. Yeah, whatever Phil Donahue was. That's what I am.
Well, that's that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing with my podcast too. They're talk shows. Like,
but why is it then that for the last let's say starting when COVID started, like that day, all of the hoaxes that we've all been through, why is it that I didn't fall for any of them? Why is it that my track record, I get political predictions wrong all the time. I thought DeSantis could win the primary. I have no problem admitting that. I thought there was a different way the Republicans could go. And by the way, I'm thrilled with the result. I couldn't be happier. I fought for Trump and all that stuff. So putting aside political predictions, why is it that I didn't screw up why didn't I fall for all of the hoaxes? Why, when the Jussie Smollett thing came out and they said that two black guys, or that he was lynched by two guys with...
Why are you talking about when Jussie Smollett? When did this happen? When did the Jussie Smollett thing go down? Yeah, in 2019. That was 5 fucking years ago, dude.
MAGA hats who said this is MAGA country, and it turned out to be these black brothers that he paid. Why is it that I didn't immediately fall for the hoax? Yeah, Kamala Harris immediately tweeted out that this proves we're a white supremacist nation, and I think that's still... I think that tweet is still up. Why is it that MSNBC fell for every hoax? Why is it that I didn't fall for all of the COVID hoaxes? By day 15, I thought, okay, 2 weeks to stop the spread.
All of the COVID hoaxes. You fell for all of the conservative hoaxes, my dude.
We're done now, and now they've moved on to something else. It's not because I'm some kind of genius. Why did you not fall for all these hoaxes? Why did Rogan not really fall for all these hoaxes? And everyone, I'd say to some degree, we all got screwed up by COVID in some ways. And, you know, I think you've even said that you got, I think I did your first interview back after your health stuff, and you said that you got vaxxed, and you thought the whole idea was now the government, if I can quote you directly, was leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah. That is what I thought. I thought, okay.
And it's interesting. I remember thinking when you said that to me on air, I thought, that's interesting, because I never thought that.
Yeah.
I thought if I do it...
The government wasn't forcing you to get the vaccine. You didn't have to get vaccinated at any point. You either had to get vaccinated or you had to test regularly so you didn't infect your coworkers. That's actually a really reasonable public health, mandate. Like, saying, no, I have the right to infect my coworkers with infectious diseases is actually the insane position to take here.
They'll never leave me alone. And I think that actually turned out to be more true in some
definitely.
sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, well,
but what is it? What is it about us then?
Well, I think partly we put our finger on it with regard to the fact that you don't have a whole corporation behind you composed of people and advertisers that are all thinking the same thing and purveying the same message, right? So you can go out and scavenge for information. That's the other thing too, is the information environment that surrounds you. This is a point they made on MSNBC. I think it was the guy who runs Axios, who was the commentator. I think we're going to probably clip that into this show. He pointed out that, people who are on the cutting edge of the technological world, let's say the online media world, they're information scavengers. Like, I gather information from, well, I'm on X a fair bit, but I gather information from a lot of different sources. It's not
interesting that he's not talking about any academic sources.
an easy thing to do. And so the information pipeline that you have isn't a legacy media monolith by any stretch of the imagination. And I think a lot of these people, rather than, the charitable interpretation is, rather than being outright purveyors of falsehoods, they're in an ecosystem where it's like a monoculture. Everybody thinks the same thing.
Right. It's like a fish swimming in water that's so polluted, a tank that's so polluted that he can't see right in front of him, even though his memory's short anyway, but now he literally can't see where he's swimming. Think about it. How is it that why is it that I did a video in 2019, people can find it, saying Joe Biden has clearly the beginnings of dementia or something cognitively wrong with him? 2019. Again, I'm not a doctor. I was just...
Because he's fucking old, dude. You're not like some bold truth teller for recognizing he's old. That's not a alert the presses thing. We know he's fucking old.
Watching the videos like everybody else. I watched the corn pop video.
But how much time do you spend every week looking at media information?
No, an awful lot.
Well, how much?
I would say I'm definitely within the X Twitter ecosystem a couple hours a day. So that's a pretty significant amount of time. I try not to do it on the weekends. I do my August off the grid thing, which I think also has helped me stay sane throughout this, because I get out of the hamster wheel basically, once a year for 8 years now. But the Biden cognitive issue, they lied and lied and lied, and they kept saying, "Don't see what you see,"
he's
and
still
then
president.
and he's still president
Yeah, I know.
right now.
I know, it's
Although
unbelievable.
something seems to have turned on, because I think he's starting to realize, man, he's got a legacy and he can figure it out in the next 2 months. And I think his legacy, if he's smart, and I don't know what's left of him, but if Jill and whoever else is around him that has sense with them, they have an incredible opportunity right now, and I hope they'll take this. The opportunity is, you have no reason to placate to the left. You were brought in because you were old Joe the moderate. You weren't crazy Bernie. You weren't Elizabeth Warren. You weren't one of the radicals. You governed like one of them. They took advantage of you. But now they clearly tried to screw you by forcing him out. He's basically said that. I mean, that's what he said on The View, that they forced him out. He thought he was going to win. So we'll find out what happened there one day, because eventually the truth will come out. But what an interesting moment he has right now. He has 2 months to say, I have no reason to play with you children anymore, and I can build a legacy. So what could my legacy be? Well, maybe Donald Trump's not Hitler. And maybe I could do a few things like, I don't know, maybe somehow winding down some portion of the Iraq war, or helping Israel win their war, getting our hostages back, the American hostages, if not the Israelis, or maybe doing something about the border, which they are doing a little more now. He has an interesting moment right now where his legacy could be, he took us to the precipice of hell. He got taken advantage of, right? They'll write about it one day. But then right there, when he had a moment, the 2 months between administrations, he did something right. And I don't think that's complete. A lot of people are saying I'm nuts for that. But if you were Joe Biden, and again, we don't know what's really in his mind or what he's capable of cognitively at this point. But wouldn't that be a pretty good ending to the story?
That would be a good ending. That would also help the Democrats get
But what if we just stopped telling the story there? Wouldn't that be great?
back on track.
So if it's a story,
Well, and maybe
What a great contribution to the conversation, Dave.
we'll get lucky too. And so in the last month of the campaign, we had all these strange people aggregate around Trump, and that was a game changer as far as I was concerned. Because
that was it.
It really helped put my concerns about a Trump administration to rest. And then we had the spectacle.
How does he have millions of views? Because he was the first person to do the "why I left the left" grift. And so he was fast-tracked and touted by all of these right-wing, organizations and personalities. And he leaned into that hard and kept accruing that viewership. So now he basically barely has to try, because he has this built-in viewership of almost, 2.5, 3 million folks. And he can just pop out some bullshit, cut some clips from these longer talks, and bada bing, bada boom. You get like 30,000 for one, 100,000 for another, 300,000 here. He's doing the thing. He's just coasting on the inertial energy of the moment.
Of him turning to the podcast world, and he did that with accruing success. Like, you could see that he had some trepidation to begin with, but as he found out what that ecosystem was like, and we can forgive him for not discovering that earlier, because he is 78,
And he did do some of it, by the way. I mean, he did my show.
Yeah.
He did my show when he was president. Right. So he was bouncing in and out. But yes, you're totally right that he went hardcore. I'm going to sit down with the Nelk boys while they're talking about, spiked seltzer and then Rogan and everything
and with Theo Vaughn.
And Theo, which was great, which was really great.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And then, of course, the capstone was obviously Rogan. And then they tried to censor that on YouTube, right? Which was just beyond comprehension, that they mucked up the search algorithms. I just couldn't believe that.
But again, they knew they were going to get caught. And this is the thing that I'm still stuck on. I'm not stuck on that they lie, and I'm not stuck on that they put themselves in an ecosystem where the lies then become pervasive. I'm stuck on the other part. Like, you're going to Obama knows he's going to get caught. YouTube knows that they're going to get called out for the algorithmic tricks. And yet they still do it. And that shows
YouTube took down the first interview I did with RFK during the presidential election. They took it down. I thought the Democrats were screeching for months about Russian collusion and election interference, and yet you're willing to censor an actual presidential candidate with an actual 2-hour interview. And that's
because he's saying crazy shit that could get people killed. Yeah. He killed like 60 children because of his anti-vax bullshit, like directly attributable to him. Yeah, he's saying stuff that gets people killed. Medical information that people believe, and then they kill their kids because they act on the information he gave them. The misinformation he gave them, rather.
Somehow that's okay. Somehow that's okay.
Well, it's
that's
funny
not
you say
okay.
it's funny you say the Democrats, and you're talking about YouTube, and that shows
Yeah,
you
right.
that shows you the
Well,
connection between these things, right? So that is what drove us all together.
So that's another thing to point out too.
Yeah.
When the Democrats are carping about not having access to this new media, it's like, well, all the YouTube censors, let's point out, are on your side, and you bloody well had Twitter too until Musk took it over.
Jordan, I don't know what year it was, 2019 maybe. There was a cover story on Sunday New York Times with me, you, Thomas Sowell, Milton Friedman, I think Tim Pool, a couple other people, that we were the YouTube leaders of the alt-right. And they did an entire piece about, multi-page piece, about how the YouTube algorithms were driving people to the right.
Yeah.
Think how absolutely bananas that is.
Right.
Now in retrospect, they had the entire machine. They had the entire machine. They used it against all of us while telling us that we were the ones using them, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the YouTube algorithm still does this. Here's a paper from Princeton University. Auditing YouTube's recommendation system for ideologically congenial, extreme, and problematic recommendations. Yeah, let's see. Algorithms of social media platforms are often criticized for recommending ideologically congenial and radical content to their users. Despite these concerns, evidence on such filter bubbles and rabbit holes of radicalization is inconclusive. We conduct an audit of the platform using 100,000 sock puppets that allow us to systematically and at scale isolate the influence of the algorithm and recommendations. We test 1, whether recommended videos are congenial with regards to users' ideology, especially deeper in the watch trail, and whether 2, recommendations deeper in the trail become progressively more extreme and come from more problematic channels. We find that YouTube's algorithm recommends congenial content to its partisan users, although some moderate and cross-cutting exposure is possible, and that congenial recommendations increase deeper in the trail for right-leaning users. We do not find meaningful increases in ideological extremity of recommendations deeper in the trail, yet we show that a growing proportion of recommendations come from channels categorized as problematic, e.g. IDW, alt-right, conspiracy, and QAnon, with this increase being most pronounced among very right users. Although the proportion of the problematic recommendations is low, max of 2.5%, they are still encountered by over 36.1% of users and up to 40% in the case of very right users. So, yeah, that makes a difference at scale. That type of biasing does make a difference at scale. The number of people who use YouTube that make 2.5%, that's a big deal. And yet, YouTube is censoring us. Why aren't we biased more in favor?
And I guess they got their comeuppance, and that's the beautiful part of this.
Yeah, well, thank God for free speech. That's for sure. Yeah.
That's why we're happy to have you in America, because it's not going so well up in your country.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. The liberals up there. Well, so here's something interesting, I guess, insofar as Canadian politics is interesting, but the world is such now and so upside down that even Canadian politics has become interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's not good. And so Stephen Guilbeault, who's the Minister of Environment, who's been waging war against the resource economy in Canada, which is, by the way, the economy in Canada.
Right.
Right. And he declared a week and a half ago publicly that he was a socialist. And I thought, French-Canadian socialist, and I thought, you son of a bitch, there's a socialist party in Canada. That's the NDP. It's like, what the hell are you doing in the Liberal Party, which was a centrist party, like the centrist Democrats forever, and the Natural Governing Party of Canada? It's like the progressives just invaded it. They didn't care that it was a complete bloody lie, that they had taken over the Liberal Party and turned it into left of the Socialist Party, actually. And now they're proclaiming that outright.
So what does that tell you about the psychological, what I would say is weakness, but maybe I would want to hear your adjective on that, of the good liberal? The good liberal who allowed all of this to come in.
Yep,
this is a compassion issue?
Well, you know, when all this started, and I think it was the same with you, you know, I regarded myself as a classic British liberal, essentially. But I've come to understand.
You're Canadian, though. You as a Canadian considered yourself a classic British liberal. All right.
Something
weirdo
over the last 8 years that I didn't understand in the beginning, as certainly not as well anyways, is that liberal individualism only works when the collective is so well established that you can take it for granted.
Yes.
So as long as the self-evident truths remain self-evident, then you can have something like a liberal individualism.
So it's basically, as long as the conservatives are holding the door from the barbarians, then the liberals can be liberal.
Exactly that.
And that's how a functional society should work, in essence.
Well, you know, in the story of the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, so
oh, keep Tolkien out of your goddamn mouth.
The Shire is full of, well, let's call them liberals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they're smoking some stuff. You know,
they're hobbits, and they're all pursuing their own thing, and they think their little kingdom is everything. But, you know, the borders are protected by the Striders. Aragorn is one of them, and it turns out that he's the descendant of ancient kings. And that's exactly right. It's like,
the Shire's protected by a lot more than just the Rangers. It's protected by a lot of things and a lot of factors.
as long as the perimeters are defended by the descendants of ancient kings, then there can be freedom inside the walls.
As long as we have an authoritarian force protecting us around our borders, we can live our decadent lifestyles inwardly. But you know, at a certain point, you have to go on that adventure, and then you have to get the soft times. They bring the badness, and then the badness requires hard men.
And so, you know, I've been criticized. The more public books I've written have been criticized for, what would you say, making a case out of the self-evident. But we are at a point where the self-evident is no longer self-evident and needs to be explained and defended. And that's actually, what would you say, that's what's turned me into a conservative to the degree that I am.
It's what turned me, says Jordan Peterson, emerging from Brokeback Mountain screening.
I'm a conservative. It's like, well, all these things that are self-evident have to be restated and also explained. You know?
Right. You wouldn't have had to have written 12 Rules for Life had the system been operating properly. Right. That's the point. You would think in the year 2000, when you wrote it, 2017, 16, whatever it was, that had the world actually been operating as it should have with all the advancements of humanity, it would not be necessary to say things that are just, why would you pet a cat when you walk by it? Well, there's a reason. There's actually a reason. You remember, wait, I'll tell you a funny story in a sec, but you know, Douglas, the line on this about the walls that Douglas has that I love this, and he said this years ago, was that one day the barbarians will be at the gate and we'll be debating what gender pronouns to call them. And I think that's what happened to the liberals. They saw the chaos, and instead of confronting it as the conservatives, and we can do the conservative.
Yeah, it wasn't, trans people aren't why liberals lost this election.
Version of this where their weak spots are too, obviously. But instead of confronting what was going on, how good they had it, they decided to just, we'll let the crazy people just keep running around. And then, the guy's trying to hold the door and we'll just sort of chisel at his Achilles heel a little bit by not defending him. And we'll kind of call him racist too. Or when other people call him racist and he's not really racist, we won't say anything. And I think that that's really what's happened here. It was sort of like, when they took Alex Jones out originally.
Yeah. Which barbarians are at America's gates right now? Because it kind of seems like you're maybe in this analogy you're trying to make, or in this scenario you're trying to draw, this narrative you're trying to weave. You're saying that undocumented immigrants are the barbarians at our gates, as if they're an invading force, when they're coming here to do labor, which enriches our country. So, like, might be a bit of a difference there.
I had done Alex Jones' show one time. It's the only time we ever spoke publicly. I remember I said a little something on Twitter, but I was just like, I don't know how close I want to get to this thing. It's all crazy. We all have certain pressure points that we deal with and how much heat you want to take and everything else. I think in retrospect, we all should have been screaming much, much louder. And a lot of people in our circles didn't say a word about that when he got booted off Twitter and kicked off YouTube and all of those things. That we all just thought, it'll kind of never come for us. And to Trump's credit, by the way, what was his main line is, they're not coming for me. They're coming for you. I'm just standing in the way.
Yeah. Well, the fact that he got...
I alone can save you.
Funny how they keep accusing the left and doctors of pushing a trans agenda, instead of what usually happens when doctors perform unnecessary surgery. Lawsuits. Usually happens when doctors perform unnecessary surgery. Lawsuits.
Exactly, Sake Tanuki. Like, we already have mechanisms to deal with what they're claiming is happening. But it just, it just doesn't, those things haven't been forthcoming, so they have to make them up.
Kicked off Twitter was a perfect example of that. That was just beyond comprehension as far as I was concerned.
Well,
what? Really?
Also, thank you for the $5.
When I went to Twitter, when I got a call one day from someone at Twitter, basically saying, Elon wants to meet you. Can you get here tonight? It was at about 3 o'clock on a Tuesday or something, Tuesday or Thursday. And I called everybody I knew who had a private plane. I was like, somebody's got to get me over there. Nobody could get on. I jump on a plane. I get to Twitter.
You called everyone you know with a private plane? Fuck you, Dave. Fuck you. Fucking Jagoff.
About 12:30 a.m. This is like a week or two after he bought Twitter. And he comes out, there's all these people there. It's just such a buzz, right? And he comes out, it's about 12:30 a.m. His eyes are bloodshot. And he's clearly tired, right? And you've met him many times now. He dresses like a normal guy. He's in like this ratty t-shirt. It's late at night. His sneakers are dirty. And he's clearly been there for God knows how long. Probably hasn't slept
5 years.
Yeah, probably hasn't slept in however, right? And he says to me, he goes, Dave, I heard about what's been going on with your account. He's like, do you want to do this tonight? Or if it's okay, could we do it tomorrow?
He's dirty and unkempt because he's autistic as fuck and has executive dysfunction, okay? It's painfully obvious to everyone. He's not some super genius. He just has poor impulse control. Like, he's not working 20 hours a day. He's the top-rated, like, Diablo 4 player in the world right now. You don't get to be top rated in Diablo 4 if you're not playing the game like 20 hours a day. He's not working nonstop. God. These people are so easily dazzled by key jangling.
Look, this is insane. The world's richest man is basically like, can I work for you tonight at 1 a.m.? I was like, oh, it's actually okay. I'll come back tomorrow. And then I sat there the next day with a whole bunch of engineers who opened the hood of the thing. And the entire system, the entire Twitter system was built to shadowban. That's it. Everything under the hood of Twitter was built to put filters and tags, and you said this, so now you can't see this, or you connected with that person, so now you can't connect with this person. The entire system was built that way. So Jack Dorsey, who was the CEO for much of it, he testified under oath that they do not shadow ban, but the whole freaking system was built that way. Now, he probably legally didn't get in trouble because shadow ban is not a technical term, and he may have
Yeah. Also, it's a private platform.
You know, I think he was just playing with the words there. But the point is, there was an entire system basically built to silence a certain set of people and promote another set of people. And now
it didn't work.
And it didn't work. So how?
Dude, if you want the system that you're gunning for, just go post on 4chan. Just go post on 4chan. Seriously, unironically. Just go post on one of those sites. There are unmoderated social media sites. People in mass just don't want to use them.
Cool is that? How cool is that? And that's where we're at right now. How incredible, actually.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
How the fuck would you know? He opened the box and I saw the algorithms. And one of the algorithms looked at me.
Well, Dave, I guess we could turn back to Canada for a moment.
Yeah, sorry, I went on a tangent there.
No, that's fine. So the radicals have definitely taken over Canada, and it's really quite bad. So
God, imagine having the gall to complain about Canadian politics when it's about to like pendulum swing hardcore to the right. God.
When Trudeau was elected, we were at parity for per person GDP in Canada.
Every single story they've shared tonight has been unimaginably stupid.
And that's historically about where Canada has been. Sometimes a little ahead.
Parity with America, Fukuyama, currently suffering though.
Sometimes a little behind, more often a little behind, but now we're at 60%. Canadians are poorer in per capita GDP than Mississippi residents. Right? And our real estate is twice as expensive. Right? And so now the upside is that, unfortunately, well, I said the upside. The upside is that it's over, but it won't come to its conclusion for a year. Right? Poilievre is going to be the next prime minister unless some bloody, completely unforeseen catastrophe occurs, and that strikes me as unlikely. And the Liberals, who are now the socialists, farther to the left than the NDP, who are the actual socialists, they're going to get demolished so hard that they might disappear federally. It's going to be a bloodbath, and it's so well deserved. But, this is a big but, you said, you know, that Biden now has an opportunity in the next 2 months to do the right thing, and maybe he will. Trudeau has a year, and I believe Trudeau is a wounded narcissist. So I thought he was narcissistic right from the beginning. And the reason I believed that was because he had no right to put himself forward as prime minister. He had no resume. He didn't know anything. All he had was a name that he didn't make known. His father did. That's all he had. Well, no,
and he was a drama teacher.
Yeah. He was also good looking, and he was graceful, and he was charming. And he knew how to behave in public. Like, so
that's run pretty thin though. Now,
I know, but it wasn't nothing.
Yeah. Look, that will take you very far as a politician in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to give the devil his due.
Yeah.
But in terms of competence, that was just completely lacking. And also the ability to see that he didn't have the knowledge or the ability to run a country. That was lacking. Now, when he was first approached,
man, I wish, I know we say it all the time, but I really wish liberals were as cool as conservatives seem to think they are. You know, conservatives constantly fearmonger about how, like, the socialists are in power, or the socialists have taken over, or the communists are doing XYZ in the country or whatever. And it's never, ever, ever the case. Ever. I wish Justin Trudeau was a socialist. Canada would be much better off if he was.
I thought, okay, you could refuse, or because of the heritage of your family, let's say, you don't want the Conservatives to win. And so you decide to stand for prime minister, but you understand very clearly that you don't know what the hell you're doing at all. And so you surround yourself with people who are experts and you let them teach you. And he did none of that. I mean, he set up a cabinet that was half women in 2015. And that's why he said he did it, because it was 2015, even though only 1 in 4 MPs were women. So he set up a bad cabinet to begin with, because he over-selected from 25% of the population. And that was all virtue signaling. And so now, he started out as a narcissist, and he never...
What? He over-selected from 25% of the population? Dude, what a way to say he had too many women. What a way to say that. And also, I'm pretty sure women make up half the population, not 25%. I'm not a biologist or anything, but neither is Jordan Peterson, clearly.
Changed. And now the problem, one of the problems with narcissists is that when everybody likes them, they can be quite benevolent, because...
Oh God, Dithron, it is so late here, but chat chose violence and I must see it through.
Their greatness is recognized. But when people decide that they're detestable, which is pretty much where Trudeau has got in Canada.
Yeah.
It's very hard for him to go out in public now without people like literally cursing him. Then it's time for revenge. And he's got a bill tabled right now called Bill C-63, which has gone through first reading. So it's on the way to becoming law, which is, it makes Bill C-16, which was the one I objected to, look like child's play. This is the most totalitarian bill I've ever seen a Western country produce by a large margin.
This is about registering the news organizations?
That's part of it. Part of it. Well, it's a bill to reduce online harms. That's its name, and it starts out with a description of how children are going to be protected from sexual predators online, and it ends with that. But in the middle, there's a whole new bureaucracy that has all the powers of a judiciary, and that's infinitely expandable, that isn't bound by the rules of standard evidence, which it says in the bill, which is just beyond comprehension to me. And it has pretty much unlimited powers of seizure and investigation and punishment, life in prison for hate crime with all these protected groups. And
you know, the way he is talking about this makes it sound like if you misgender someone enough times, you're going to be put in prison for life. That's kind of the frame he's presenting here. When I'm not a legal expert, but I feel like I can say with almost 100% confidence that misgendering people alone will not be enough to get a life sentence. Open up, it's the gender police. How many genders you got in here? Is this the bill? The Online Harms Act established the Digital Safety Commission of Canada. Okay. All right. Digital Safety Office. Implement measures that are adequate to mitigate the risk that users will be exposed to harmful content. Duty to protect children. Okay. Duty to make content that sexually victimizes a child or re-victimizes a survivor, and intimate content communicated without consent, inaccessible. Okay. Under certain circumstances, duty to keep all records that are necessary to determine whether they're complying. Okay. Create a hate crime offense of committing an offense under that act or any other act of parliament that is motivated by hatred. Create a recognizance to keep the peace relating to hate propaganda, hate crime offenses. Define hatred for the purposes of new offense. Okay. Maximum sentences for hate propaganda offenses. Okay. under that act or any other act of parliament that is motivated by hatred. Yeah, so if I am understanding this correctly, basically this is just allowing the criminal code to have like essentially a label slapped on it that is like this was a crime, and it is also a hate crime because it was done with hatred. Just read us the totalitarian part. I'm reading you I'm just going over the entire thing here. But yeah, it really does just seem like a way to escalate an offense because it was done as a hate crime. Can they just arrest him for being a stochastic terrorist? No, I don't think so. Well, maybe in Canada. In the United States, no, it's legal to be a stochastic terrorist in the United States, unfortunately. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything that I just like missed by glazing over it, but no. Let's see. Wait. Part 3 amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to provide that it is a discriminatory practice to communicate or cause to be communicated hate speech by means of the internet and or other means of telecommunication in a context in which hate speech is likely to foment detestation or vilification of an individual or group of individuals on the basis of prohibited ground of discrimination. It authorizes the Canadian Human Rights Commission to deal with complaints alleging that discriminatory practice and authorizes the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal to inquire into such complaints and order remedies. Okay. And then Part 4 amends an act respecting the mandatory reporting of internet child pornography by persons who provide an internet service to, among other things. Yeah, basically, basically here, you have an obligation to protect the children's. What about sarcastic terrorists? Haha. Okay, so basically, yeah, basically he's complaining about the fact, not that it would be necessarily a hate crime to do hate speech online, but that it would be officially labeled a discriminatory practice to, do hate speech, which definitionally that's what hate speech is. And that the Human Rights Tribunal could be assembled to inquire into complaints of that nature. Oh no. The horror. You might have to be held accountable for your words? Crazy.
And the worst of it is that I can't even believe this can possibly be true. I can take you in front of a provincial magistrate, and if I convince the provincial magistrate that I'm afraid that you might commit a hate crime in the next year, say with your Twitter utterances, he'll affix an electronic surveillance bracelet to your leg and keep you in your house for a year.
That's literally not a part of this law. That Jordan Peterson is just like pulling this out of his ass. Like, this is stuff he wrote for his true crime novel, and he's applying it on the show with Dave Rubin.
Pre-crime.
It's pre-crime.
You saw Minority Report?
It's pre-crime. Yeah, it's pre-crime. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No, it's just holding people accountable for hate speech. And also, they're not putting, like, bracelets and putting you on home arrest for that. Be fucking real, dude. The same way no one was ever sent to jail under the last bill that you said was so beyond the pale heinous. I doubt anyone is going to jail over this new bill. At least that part of the new bill.
Absolutely. And this is the weirdest part of it. I can't even believe that this can possibly be true. That you will have to provide samples of your bodily fluids when requested to assure that you're not, I don't know what, drinking, smoking pot. I think what happened was that's a requirement if you're in a domestic abuse case, right? Because, you know, if you're drunk, you're much more likely to be a domestic abuser. And
Right.
so arguably there might be some sense, if you've been convicted of domestic abuse, of making that a condition of, let's say, you're released back into the community. But as a defense against what? The kind of pre-crime that, well, that's exactly it. It's like someone's...
Wait, you just said a situation in which you think that this absurd pre-crime thing might actually make sense. So, in effect, there are circumstances under which it would not be an absurd pre-crime thing. Yeah, it's not for all of the circumstances. It's for specific ones wherein that might apply. God, it's crazy to see him work through it, establish it's totally fine under this scenario, but then under his hypothetical, well, then it's just beyond the pale. And clearly that means it's beyond the pale for all the circumstances. Except for that one where I said it wasn't.
afraid that you might do something that is hateful. Well, that's just part of that's
They
just part of
need to
his
take
skill.
him up on that. That would be something. That's how the movie ends. He gets taken up on the same law. That,
Yeah, right.
Also, my understanding is that the Human Rights Tribunal is not the same as like the court of law in Canada. Like the Human Rights Tribunal has like some capacity for levying like consequences, but I don't think human rights tribunals can just like send you to prison for life, like Jordan Peterson is trying to imply here. Could be wrong, not a lawyer, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so your concern though is that, so it's interesting because on one hand, you think that what I laid out with Biden is possible,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
there's a truncated period of time. Basically what you're saying to me is because Trudeau now has too much time,
Year.
it could really go much worse.
I'm virtually certain that that's what will happen.
Do you think if he had a truncated period of time like Biden does that it would get better because he would be looking at the end much more closely?
No.
So that's interesting. So you think there's something, so I
I
agree
think
with
he'll
that
be
too.
out-
I think he's much,
all of them will be out for revenge. I mean, I can already see that Stephen Guilbeault, he's the worst sort of progressive imaginable. He would sacrifice the poor to his green delusions. He is. That's exactly what he is doing. That's what he's doing. He's already declared war essentially on the Western provinces and Alberta in particular, even though his own province, Quebec, depends on the money Alberta sends them to maintain anything that resembles an advanced industrial economy. So I think they'll really do damage to Canada in the next year. And then Poilievre will have to come in and mop up. And he's going to have a very tough fight on his hands because things are worse in Canada than Canadians believe, and they're likely worse than I know. And we won't know how bad they are till Poilievre takes power, and then they'll all be blamed on him. So, yeah, so Canadians are in for a rough time. And they haven't woken up.
What great political analysis based on nothing other than hyperbole.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say that the typical Canadian, for example, was a Trump supporter, right? They're still trapped in that.
Obviously, they wouldn't be because they're Canadian. Why would they be Trump supporters? They're in Canada. You got your own elections coming up.
Centrist, progressive mindset that is completely ignorant of the danger of the radical
Not only
leftists.
can you take a load, you can take the ultimate load.
I can tell you that we have an awful lot of snowbirds, we call them down in Florida, who are Canadians who are not going back.
Yeah.
They're everywhere
Yeah,
I go
yeah.
now, there are Canadians everywhere. And they're like, I don't know that they're not, technically they're supposed to go back at some point, of course, but
Oh, okay. So Dave is okay with undocumented immigrants as long as they're Canadian. Okay, I got you, Dave.
like they're
As
saying,
long as they're the right kind of undocumented immigrant. Huh?
a lot longer than they used to, for sure. Like
Yeah.
even this summer,
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of Canadians usually coming to a Florida summer, but
Yeah,
they are
right.
because they realize what's going
No,
on.
Jordan Peterson absolutely doesn't read. Jordan Peterson doesn't read shit. He doesn't have to. There's a reason why in this discussion he mentioned that his main resource is Twitter. he's not reading academic articles or books or anything like that. He's just passively absorbing information and then like over explaining and micro analyzing verbiage in ways that are totally unproductive and unhelpful for an actual conversation. And then he churns out bullshit like this. It's pseudo, I would call it pseudoscience, but it's not science. It's not even trying to pretend to be science. It's like, I mean, I guess pseudo-intellectual, you know? Like either pseudo-intellectual or like, yeah, I guess I'd go with that. I don't know. It's really bizarre that so many people flock to him.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
so you need Canada to wake up to its sense of adventure.
That's for sure. Well, there are signs of improvement. You know, Danielle Smith's tough as a boot, the premier of Alberta, and Poilievre, as far as I can tell, he's a man with a spine. He's not easy to push around, and I think he's sensible, and I actually do think that he actually cares about working class people. So, like Trump, weirdly enough, because Trump actually cares about working class people. And so having worked with them for so long as well, and understands them as well, and the Democrats made that decision under Hillary Clinton to throw the white working class in particular just under the bus. And so, c'est la vie, man.
God, they had no reason to do that. Well, I guess the reason was to attain power, and they did it.
They made
for
a
quite some time.
calculated risk to go for the marginal, and all right.
Your line about the fringe of the fringe.
I just have to. I just have to.
He actually cares about working class people. So,
he does not actually care about working class people. He regularly stiffs working class people.
So, like Trump, weirdly enough, because Trump actually cares about working class people. And so having worked with them for so long as well, and understands them as well, and the Democrats made that decision under Hillary Clinton to throw the white working class in particular just under the bus. And so,
I mean, not the white working class in particular under the bus, the working class. The working class got thrown under the bus, but also the working class has gotten thrown under the bus for, you know, I mean, since Clinton. You know, the Clinton era, the Bill Clinton era of neoliberalism is what put us on the current path we are in the Democratic Party. You know, neoliberalism, as I understand it, and I bought a book to help me understand it a bit better, is basically the gutting of liberalism itself. It is the scalpel that you know, cuts through all of the defensive mechanisms of liberalism, and it's what has led us to this point of vulnerability today. And like that's pretty obvious. And so in a way, we are officially an hour and 32 minutes and 58 seconds into this show, and Jordan Peterson has finally made one point that is accurate. We did it. We found the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
We did it. We did it.
C'est la vie, man.
God, they had no reason to do that. Well, I guess the reason was to attain power, and they did it.
They made
for
a
quite some time.
calculated risk to go for the marginal.
No. Reagan wasn't neoliberal, right? Reagan was deeply conservative. Conservatives have been interested in gutting all of the liberalism, you know, since forever. But Bill Clinton is what embraced it for the Democratic Party.
Oh, and
your line about the fringe of the fringe, I quote on my show often too, because that's the other part that could sort of trap us as we sort of split and we were all online getting our own news sources and scavenging, as you said.
Yeah.
There's always going to be new fringes. Like that's really going to be the new thing. The one argument you could make for the mainstream or the corporate would be that it did keep the Overton window a little bit like this, so we all at least dealt with some, even if the reality was very skewed to what was really real, at least it was a little bit within the lanes.
I think you're
and
right.
now,
That's right.
now we're dancing out here all the time. And I think that's going to be, and then when you throw AI on top of that, that's going to really be the next challenge. Let me give you something before we wrap up this 500th Jordan Peterson podcast. You can read the
Dave, were you planning on giving him that present at the beginning? Because that was on the table. I've been waiting to find out what was in that gift bag the entire time.
card privately, but that's from a couple weeks ago. And I think it's
that's a good
nice
picture, man.
Not bad, right?
We're both much better looking in that picture than we actually are. So that's good.
Nothing a little Photoshop can't do. A little high contrast Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. Did you run it through the AI filter? That what does that do? That makes your eyes a little wider?
I have a team of many people who can do all sorts of tricks. You know what I mean? There's we're going to look as good as we can right there. But even just doing that together after all these years, it was like the perfect sort of next phase of where we're at with all of this. You know, we talked about.
Man, I sorry, it took me a few seconds there to process that Dave Rubin gave Jordan a framed photograph of the two of them together, and I bet that there are few things that Jordan Peterson wants less than something like that. I bet there are few things that Jordan Peterson values less than a photograph meant for display that he does not want.
About the ideas. I built a tech company in the middle of all of this.
Right.
We tried to. We tried to do
we
together.
didn't even tell that story today.
Let me just say one thing, because it's probably never been said publicly before, but everyone knows all the great things about you. But when you were starting to get sick, and we were working on the idea together, you had your version of it at first, and I put in $100,000, and then you realized that you were not going to be available for a while. And I think the last time we spoke for then a year was you saying, Dave, take the money back, because if I can't be involved in this, you should take them. I don't even know if you remember that even, but like you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. And then with that money, I then started Locals, and then that all worked. So we did. So anyway, I brought you that because I thought it was nice that we then ended up on stage just weeks before the election with RFK and Tulsi and so many of these people we've talked about.
Oh, so that was at DC.
That was DC just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what a wild and crazy ride.
Nah, it's not a crush axolotls with cream. It's less pure than that. Dave Rubin is just sucking up to power, you know? He just recognizes that Jordan Peterson dwarfs him in terms of mainstream attention and relevance, and he wants to cozy up to that. He wants to cuddle up to it so that he can siphon whatever he can for himself. It's just the mosquito mentality that Dave Rubin has. You know, his little mosquito brain is just buzzing through to try and suckle up some of that clout.
It has been.
That's for sure. And the thing is, it's not over.
Is it?
Yeah. Good to see you, Dave.
Good to see you, my man.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. So as you know, everybody, we've got another half an hour on the Daily Wire side. And so...
oh, boy. I'm so glad we don't have to watch a full 2-hour conversation between these two.
I'll continue my conversation with Mr. Rubin there, and you're obviously all invited to come over to the dark side with the Daily Wire people and throw a little support their way.
What does get sick mean? Yeah, he's talking about Jordan Peterson's addiction. Yeah,
which is, I always think, a good investment, given that they've been staunch defenders of the very free speech that we've been talking about, and right from the beginning. And so, with all this shakeup in the media world, what the Daily Wire is, well, continues to be of who knows how much import. So join us on the Daily Wire side. Thanks again, Dave.
Oh my God, we did it. We did it. We did it, everybody. We're free. Thank God. Oh. Luckily, we don't have to thank God that much, because we already saved our souls earlier on stream. Thanks to Harvest, the not sponsor of today's stream. Good morning, tipster. How are you doing today? Lovely. Also, folks, we've been going for 5 hours now. If you've been enjoying the show, please hit the follow button on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like the goddamn YouTube stream. I miss Jordan already. Yeah, me too. But you know what? The good news is we've covered him, and now we can just forget about him for a while. You know, we've fueled up our Jordan meter, and now it will steadily deplete. Raise your hand if you've wrestled with God. We all wrestled with God this stream.